get a start because we've still got people coming through, but I'm just mindful that we've had a couple of people waiting for a little while, so we might get started. Wonder if you're okay with that.
I'm good. Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, Wanda, look, thank you for joining us. Wanda, I'm gonna tell people a little bit about you, but I've sent through a blurb and everyone is pretty familiar with you now. But Wanda is a very gifted astrophysicist, a computer scientist, and just so happens to be blind as well. So thank you for joining us, Wanda. We really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat to us.
Thanks to you. I'm the one who have to say thank you for your kindness inviting me to meet you and to get acquaintance with you. I hope we get to establish a relationship that will last for eternity.
Great. Wanda, just to start off, where are you joining us from today?
I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm from the town of Gurabo in Puerto Rico. It's a small town with about perhaps 2,000 inhabitants. Well, my neighbor, my when I say my neighborhood, my neighborhood may have about 2,000 inhabitants. And I do live inside my neighborhood. I live in a small community called Sector Vidal Santos. That's where I'm joining you from today.
Brilliant. So I am going to have a chat. Well, I am going to sort of get into your groundbreaking scientific sort of work that you're doing at the moment. But I guess what I really, really love about your story, Wanda, when I was sort of researching uh, who you are, is that you were born with sight, lost your sight when you were a teenager,
Yes.
and growing up. Would it be fair in saying growing up you didn't grow up in a mansion?
No, not at all. Not at all. Today is it. I grew up in my castle. My castle is where my family is, right?
Yeah.
The treasure tower is where you are. Not many rooms, not much space to move around, etc. But my mansion, yes, it's the place, and this is where I am today, where I feel at home. Indeed, it was a childhood of my family is very close to each other. Um, I do remember I'm diabetic since I was a child, and due to diabetes, I developed degenerative. Sorry, my English is not very good, so I do apologize if my accent is too strong for the words to be understood.
No, not at all. We understand you.
So I developed degenerative, degenerative severe diabetic retinopathy, and over time, I lost my sight until I was a late teenager, very like getting into my adulthood when I couldn't orientate anymore. I do remember, now that you mentioned that I didn't grow in like a proper mansion, and I'm proud of it that I didn't. Um, I do remember one of the most touching memories I have is my sister also has physical disabilities, and I do remember my mom going to the pharmacy to get medications for us, and not having the money to pay. It's like, give me the medication and I will pay tomorrow, right? Or I will pay whenever my employer pays me. And I do remember the look in her eyes, right? And talking to the pharmacist, but also the most impressive part was that um, she wouldn't I wouldn't feel her sadness. I mean, I can't imagine the anguish, the a mother, right? The how her being was trembling inside that situation, and never in front of us. We never felt the anguishment. We never felt any lack of any lack of faith, any lack of hope in my mom. I do remember that clearly. So we were actually we had quite a lot of need, but we were also very happy.
Yes. Yeah. And that's you do hear a lot of people who do come from what you call humble beginnings talking about the fact that they didn't know it. Well, they didn't know they were humble beginnings because they were lots of fun, and their parents do a very. I'm a parent myself, and we do a very, very good job of hiding any kind of stress with kids. So with yourself, Wanda, when you were starting to lose your sight, I'm just going to prompt people while I've got that you can submit questions for Wanda as we go along, utilizing the chat function on Zoom, or you can send an email to webinar@visionaustralia.org, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, Jordan, that is perfect.
Okay, perfect. So on with the discussion, Wanda. So when you started losing your sight, you were doing postgraduate studies. You were studying to be a doctor. Am I correct?
I was already blind when I was doing my doctorate.
Yes.
Yes, I was. I do remember having blind spots in my visual field when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Going to the retinologist, etc., getting a diagnosis. I do remember having to use a broomstick overnight. A broomstick. A broom is what you use to sweep the floor. It has a stick so you can sweep the floor.
Yeah.
You can. Then I do remember falling around because I had no idea how to coordinate where to go in order to ask for help, and unless you would ask for help informally, you wouldn't get it, right? So I do remember very young in my life passing through that process of denial. In school, yes, I was in special education because of my diabetes and my constant hospitalizations, and that helps a lot. Being on special education, I was able to at least open a book and try to figure out a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't understand what the book was ever. No jaws, no nothing at that time.
Yeah.
So the access to information was quite limited. It is when I get to the university, when there is no screen readers. Right now, you have the non-visual desktop application, which I praise and I use a lot. It's the one that I use when I use Windows. You have JAWS in the Macs. You have the voiceover, which is really, really, really good. You also had a scan. You also have scanners that you can scan a book, and it will read it will read what the book has displayed. The scanner is really fantastic. I don't remember the name of the scanner, but at that time, none of that was available. So my grades, even though I was passing my classes, my grades were not perfect.
Yeah.
My grades were very, very, very bad, like bad with capital B, and a font of about I don't know, a million. So is that moment when I have to decide what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to continue my dream of doing science, or shall I just stop studying completely? Shall I withdraw completely? Why completely? Because I had no access, neither for scientific books, and neither for books that were not scientific. We didn't have the technology available.
Yeah.
And I want to open a parenthesis. Okay, having the technology solve something. It solves the
Yeah.
immediate access to the technology. But will you allow me to participate as equal in the field? Will you allow
Yeah.
me to get a job? Will you allow me to use my skills? And and when I say you, I'm referring to the institutional mindset.
Yeah.
Will
Please.
you
Yeah.
allow me to acquire the same the same skills as my peers?
Yes.
So that means, will you allow me to compete on equal basis with my peers? So I'm not complaining about that. It was my blessing, right? That I passed through all of that, and now I can look back, and when I spot the young generation or anyone. The youthfulness is in the heart. Anyone passing through that, I can give advice, and I can say, well, I did X, Y, and Z in order to in order to in order to, how do I say this, sobrellevar, in order to overcome that situation, in order to win, right? And to win is to never give up. So yes, indeed, I did. Is when I get into the university when the situation turned quite harsh in terms of health-wise, and in terms of accessing the information and deciding what am I going to do. Will I pursue my dream, or will I just completely give up? Forgive me. I talk a lot. Forgive me.
No. That's you answered my question perfectly, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get across to people that are living with low vision and blindness, and that they can achieve these things, and that some of the best minds around have come from these humble beginnings and faced the same challenges as they have. I guess, have you always had an interest in science in particular? Uh,
Yes.
yes. So
Yes. Since I
astro,
was since yeah, from I will tell you from birth.
yeah,
I always wanted to be a scientist, and it comes from my mom and my dad always fostered in my sister and I. We are two siblings, my sister and I. She's
yeah,
older, and they always fostered for us to go to school, and so that comes from the both of them. My mom, she always fostered for us to decide whatever we wanted to do. My father was always trying to foster for us to do experiments, to participate in scientific fairs. What else? To ask questions to the science teacher, to wonder about the origin of things, to go beyond easily sensorially perceivable, right? That in ableist language, people will call it what is evident, but what is readily available to your senses, to go beyond that. And it comes from that seed my father planted in me. So I always wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to become a medical doctor,
yeah,
because I thought that to become a scientist was to become a doctor.
Yeah.
Remember, at that time, we didn't have access to internships. Now I get interns every summer. I
Yeah.
participate in summer programs now, teaching, training people to do science. But at that time, that didn't exist, right? You had to the push was, now when I look back, I said you had to push quite. You had to push Mount Everest in order.
Yeah.
You didn't realize that you were pushing Mount Everest, right? But to me, to become a scientist was to become a medical doctor. When I go to the university, and then I have a chemist teaching me chemistry.
Yes.
It was not a teacher teaching me chemistry or a PhD in teaching. It was a person with a PhD in chemistry teaching me. That's when I said, this is a scientist. Now I have to figure out what a scientist does.
Yeah.
See, it is like that. It was like the veil on the stage was just in my life was just lift. It was up just a wee bit. It went up quite a height. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And you went as a newcomer to astrophysics. What was your first experience that made you decide, right, well, this is where I belong, is this field?
I engaged on astrophysics because of my sight loss. I had, where I was doing my in my country we call it the bachelor's degree. It's your first 4 years of university. I had a professor, a chemistry professor, who spotted that something was wrong, that something was happening. That I would go to I would go to her office at the office hours to ask questions about things that were written in the book, and I would ask her, like, here, what does it say? And then I would write it somehow else or repeat the thing in a recorder, right? In order to be able to go home and hear it again. So she spotted that something was wrong, and she began mentoring me and tutoring me in her private capacity.
Yeah.
And she was physicoquímica. She was a chemical physicist.
Yeah.
And of course, every explanation would lean to her side of the sciences, right? And my interest in physics and began in physics, right? Began with her mentoring. I did a transfer to the University of Puerto Rico to the physics department, and at that moment, I couldn't orientate. I was able to orientate by myself, like at noontime, when the sun is. It had to be very sunny.
Yeah.
The sun to be on the meridian, so that means on top of my head, and also it couldn't be like cloudy. So I at least for me to be able to orientate. So I did a transfer, and that's when things regarding my sight loss became really, really, really bad. And I had to learn to use my cane.
Yes.
I was falling too much, getting lost, going to take the bus, right? It was not that easy because the bus stop was quite distant from the university. And is when I get there, when when I faced that the field of science did not have anything available for me to perform as like my peers. Um, and I do remember that a friend of mine, Emilio, who I trusted wholeheartedly, he knew what was going on, and of course my doctor knew what was going on, and my family also knew what was going on. Um, he introduced me to the NASA radio job project. He said, Wandita, he used to call me Wandita. Wandita, I have something that you will enjoy very much. And he took me to hear these noises, these sounds, and I didn't know what I was hearing. He didn't explain what it was. He brought me to his home, and he turned on something, and I heard the and I was like, Emilio, tune your radio or do something, because really we're hearing to that distortion. And then he explained that I was listening to the cosmic background. And then he said I was hearing that real time with an antenna he had on his backyard. What are you saying? And at that moment, I was trying to figure out what to do, because my only opportunities in the physics department, while I was there studying, my grades were, I had the skills and I had the will, but no one would give me, because everything was based on academic excellence that was based on perfect grades that were based on memorizing how to solve an equation, not on performance. I could perform very, very, very well, but I couldn't pour any knowledge on a piece of paper. One, because how am I going to write this so you will understand what I'm writing? And second, I do not know what the books are conveying. That's why I went to my physics chemistry professor. So she would repeat everything that was written in the book to me, and I would record it. That was my technique, right? So when I heard that,
from what you're saying is that your practical ability in the field was flawless, but your theory side of things was where you're falling away a little bit.
Yes,
because you
yes.
have to learn different ways, obviously. Wanda, I've got a
Yes,
question come
sorry,
through. No, not at all.
forgive me.
Uh, I've got a question.
Words, sorry, I'm saying this, words that I wouldn't recognize. People would talk about things that I would just go like, I've never heard that word before. But one thing I never had was to be afraid of asking.
Yes.
I would stop people. You need to simplify your explanations. Yes, I apologize.
No worries at all. So I've got a question here from David. David wants to know, are there feasible ways into sonification for newcomers? So sonification as a newcomer, how did you start playing around with that?
Well, it was, I began, sonification is to, for the sake of David, right? Is the person that asked the question.
Yes.
Nice. Thank you so much for your question. Sonification is to convey or display information using mainly non-speech sound. So it's like an analog to auditory visualization. For sonification, I do the problem with sonification. The problem with sonification is that sonification was technologically and in terms of a training and in terms of learning the usage of sonification. Sonification was left behind because visual technologies just got a big jump in terms that the sighted people are the ones that are commanding the job market in all the aspects, and they make sense, they make conscious sense of the world visually. So audio technologies were left behind. So there is no training on how to perform mathematics using audio, how to listen to graphs using audio, and that is something that we need to develop. Being that said, in the late 1800s, the discoveries that were made, most of the discoveries that were made on phenomena in high parts of the atmosphere, and I would risk to say, without having any literature to support me, I will say even high parts of the very high parts in the magnetosphere were done using audio. The cosmic background was discovered using audio, and there's even terms like Whistler mode emissions, chirping, ringing. Those terms come from audio discoveries, from the experiential experience that the researcher had when the researcher identified the phenomena. But the technologies and the human factor, the human recognition factor, it fell behind. So if there is a way, yes, there is a way, a feasible way. The project called Rainforest in the European Gravitational Observatory is right now trying to develop training methodologies in order for peoples that are scientists, right? Anyone, but people that are visually impaired and the sighted people to learn how to use sonification to identify signatures in large streams of data. There are ways. It requires time. It did require, because when I began, we didn't have a way. Sonification was being in order to, for example, create an auditory image. An auditory image of something is to assign a sound to is to display literally via audio what is being visually displayed. When you use sonification, your advantage is that you can also use the physical parameters of the audio in order to explore what is being conveyed. How wide this wave is, how tall it is, how many times different pitches repeat or not in the data stream, how many times the audio is being absorbed or diminishes. You can use those physical parameters in order to go deeper into the whatever you're studying. The big hindrance for the development of audio sonification has been that the job market has been led by sighted people, and one assumption that was made was that people like me would never perform in the field, but that has changed. Things change. Forgive me, I talk a lot. I apologize.
No, 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 no. That's what you're here for, Wanda. We're asking these questions because we want your answers.
And I like to
Wanda,
talk. You have to stop me. I like to talk.
Wanda, I do want to touch on, so with the process of sonification, can you explain sonification, like the process that you developed and what information that you gained from sonification for people that might sort of be not of a scientific background?
Wonderful. So what I did was that um, I was able to translate into audio, into the auditory realm. I was able to translate, which is right now is not difficult to do, but I was able to translate the data that was acquired by the spacecrafts, like the spacecrafts that the space agency in the United States manage. And I was able to translate that data, those numbers, those measurements, I was able to translate them into sound. And it means that I'm every single measurement will have an analog in the auditory realm, and I was able to listen to my data stream, and I was able to establish what physical parameters, what was happening with my data. For example, listening to magnetic field fluctuation data, the space within the planet is filled with particles, and it's filled with mainly these particles that are coming from outside our solar system, but also it's filled with particles and energy that is being ejected by the sun, that we know as the solar wind. Sometimes, but not sometimes, but every time that solar wind is being ejected from the sun, those particles, they travel within the space, through the space within the planet. They travel at a velocity, and traveling at a velocity, those particles that are electrically charged, as they move through the interstellar media, they also create magnetic fields, and because they are electrically charged. So what I did was to using sonification, I was able to identify in the data regions where something that we call as turbulence happened. So what does that mean? For example, I have a bunch of electrons being ejected from the sun, and they're traveling, let's say that they're traveling at very high velocities through the interstellar media. So as those electrons, that are that cloud of electrons, always the sun is ejecting material to the interstellar media, and there is material also that comes, as I said, from outside the solar system. So let's imagine that suddenly a huge amount of particles is ejected from the solar wind, that the amount increases suddenly. And what happens is that as that cloud of particles is traveling along the magnetic, the space within the planets, that those particles are also accelerating the particles that were already in the interstellar media. But, it's not that easy. It doesn't happen that easy, because if I'm on the road, I'm a judo wrestler. If I'm on the road and I'm just there spiraling my life around on the road, and then suddenly 250 judo wrestlers that are marathon runners are speeding towards me, and that cloud of that huge, very very fast, a very fast amount of people hit me at some point, it's not going to happen that easy, because I will oppose their motion.
Yes.
And that is called turbulence.
Yes.
And that behavior of the particles in the interstellar media, that behavior of the particles, I was able to figure out in which places that turbulence occurred. And that is difficult to determine, because first, the mathematics is a little bit complex, but the mathematics that we overimpose on the data, the changes are very dim, right? Especially if you have a sudden amount of energy traveling across the interstellar media. What you will perceive is a high increase, but inside that high increase, there are places of turbulence that perhaps will not be, most likely, they will not be evident to the human eye. Perhaps it will happen in areas that are where attention mechanisms will be compromised, and using audio, you are able to identify. So that was my first contribution to the when I began using audio to listen to my data, that I was able to identify different aspects of turbulence in the interstellar media, and from listening to those turbulences, get to extrapolate to the behavior of the particles that were interacting. What is happening, and what is happening in that locality in the interstellar media? How are these electrons behaving? How are these magnetic field lines being distorted? So that was my first contribution. Then I thought, is this a Wanda thing? Or is this something that, yes, because I had the wheel, I had I wanted to do science, right? And I would be listening to my data day in and day out, nonstop. And it takes a long time to listen to the data. So what I did was that I simulated some data, and I performed experiments. And I was, at that moment, I was at a university in the United States, in the state of Massachusetts. I was at the University of Harvard, and I did experiments. And in which we simulated some data. We simulated some, what data did I simulate? It was many years ago. We simulated the characteristic data. What happens is that we simulated black hole data.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the data that was the around black holes?
Yes, that was a simulation of indicators of black hole data. What happens is that we suspect that there is a black hole in the center of galaxies.
Yeah.
And the molecular gas around the galaxy that is a candidate to have a black hole will emit a double peak symmetry spectra that is often sought by astrophysicists. And I simulated that data, and is a double peak symmetric spectrum. So that means that the peaks may be anywhere in the visual display, and also the signal to noise ratio may change. And I simulated that. And what I did was to change the position of the signal and also increase the signal to noise ratio, making sure that I would place the signal in places where the attention mechanisms will be compromised, and I would place the signal also in places that it would be impossible for a person with no neurological that is not neurologically diverse, and with no visual impairments to identify it. And what we found is that when the expert traditional astronomer uses audio, their sensitivity to signal in areas that regularly will be blind to them, their sensitivity increases. At the beginning, I couldn't believe it. I said, it cannot be. This is not possible. I need to do these experiments again. And then we did it again. We got the same results. No. We need to do it again. This cannot be happening. It cannot be true that these people left me out just because they wanted. Just because of what? Just because of ignorance? I apologize. It's really touching my heart. It cannot be true that they just left me out because of brutality. It cannot happen. No.
If I understand this correctly, Wanda, what your study identified is that the audio provided more accurate data than the visual ways of doing the same study.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Can you imagine how I felt? Then I was depressed. And then my mentor said, "Are you crazy? Don't get depressed." Those were his words. "Are you crazy? You cannot get depressed. You need to finish this. You need to publish, and you need to move this forward." It's just that the mentality of yes.
The scientists that you tested as a part of this process, that would have been hugely confronting for them, that everything that they learned,
well, they wanted to use it.
That they had learned had been less effective.
Yes, they it was quite surprising. Another thing is that many of them were interviewed by this lady. Her name is I don't remember her name. Many years before, they were interviewed for another PhD student interviewed them, wondering if they would ever use sonification for their professional research, and they said no. Yeah. We use it for outreach, and we use it for education, but not for the professional performance. That was their answer. Why they said no? It may be because they couldn't conceive at that moment another way for them to perform their research. They would imagine using it for education and people outreach for purposes of entertainment, not for purposes of going deeper into the research. So the contribution at that moment was to support the use of audio with the experimental and the documentary, the documentary proof, and the actual proof that it helps, it works. Now we need to catch up. with the visual technologies, right? And now they ask for this to happen overnight. And yes, we are trying to move forward. We need the help of all the people in Australia that are listening. If you want to join us in the effort, we will apply for funding everywhere and get you on board, because it's a fun work, but it requires a lot of work and human intelligence and interest in order to move it forward. Forgive me.
No. So, what you're saying, in the instance of using sonification, it is something that you've tested and rolling out the more with the scientists that went and studied and went and learnt that sonification provided more information for their research. Have they gone on and used it going forward in their professional career? Do you know, or?
Some are using it. Yes, some are giving it a chance, and that's why I'm at the European Gravitational Observatory, because they want to move further. They want to exploit the advantages of sonification in order to explore with utmost sensitivity the gravitational wave data. Yes, they're willing, but what they need is the training, right? Because they have 20 years of just using visual perception. So they need training on how to use audio, which we are creating right now, and not only creating it, because training is very specific. You have to generate the training and test it, do experiments, create a paradigm that will really work with the people. We need to figure out what combination of attention mechanisms augment perception, what combination of attention mechanisms may hinder perception, what timbers I may combine, what timbers are not suggested to be combined. Yes, forgive me. I talk a lot, but
So
this is where the work is. Yes.
And it sounds a little bit like your process would take a very non-distracted mind. So somebody who is able to not be distracted by the visual and be able to focus solely on the audio would be a very what you've created essentially is more than just a accessibility in your field. It sounds like you've created the ability to open the minds of other scientists as well, that to use other senses as well to get more and more information out of their chosen field. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yes, indeed. Is whenever at the beginning, whenever I would go to an observatory, and this is beautiful how the mindset has been changing, right? Is drop by drop, one step at the time, one day at the time. And at the beginning, whenever I would go to an observatory, people wouldn't ask me like, what is your proposal? What are you coming to observe? They would just take for granted that I was just going to the observatory to work on education and people outreach, which is really important. It's very important. Science makes no sense if you do not perform the work on education and people outreach. We need to foster individuals from every single background. We need to bring those perspectives in order to have a wide perspective and apply those perspectives to the data that we are analyzing. It requires every single kind of sensitivity existent and to exist. But they would corner me. Yes, forgive me.
No. Sorry to cut you off. I'm just mindful of the fact that we have about a minute left, so I really
I'm so
wanted
sorry.
to take the
I
opportunity.
apologize.
No. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you so much for giving us your knowledge and giving us your background, and we would very much love to hear a lot more about your work in the future. So I wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you so much. I'm going to send around to the Telelink guys some more information about some of the work that you're doing, but it's cutting edge, and you should be very proud of it.
And let's keep in touch. And this is just beginning. You should take the elm and continue moving it forward. My health will not allow me to continue moving forward. The mindset has been changing. At the beginning, I was cornered. Now it's not like that. We need people like you. We need people with the maturity to move this forward, to get on the elm. And I know that I'm not going to be around for much longer. So we need people like you with the interest and the determination not to stop the work. Thank you so much. I'm the one who's to say thank you.
Gemma, did you have anything else? Did you want to end it there? Thank you again, Wanda.
If you want to get on board with Rainforest, please just send me an email and get together with us, identifying signatures in gravitational waves, new particles, auditorily, sensorially, doing identifying neutrinos in the bottom of the ocean. Yes, get on board with us.
Definitely look forward to it. All right, well, I might end it there. Thank you all for attending. I hope you all enjoyed Wanda's research and her background, and I wish everybody a good day.
Let's do it again. Thank you.
Vision Australia.
Blindness,
low vision,
Opportunity.
Vision Australia logo. 3 navy blue ovals linked together diagonally within a bright yellow rectangle.